Good evening, chat, Pat, Sarah Jane. Have a nice Theo's there. Good evening, Theo. The hoodie girl, good evening. Paul's not on yet, but he will be. He will be. But I'm just going to play a little video that Paul did. And we'll put it out on Twitter. It's on Telegram. Sorry, first of all, my first thing I'm going to do, as the back you can see, the Gospel according to John. So I just want to let people know that we're doing a Bible class and a Bible talk. And I must say, we've done 3 or 4, and it's been pretty good. And that's coming from a view of like I'm not a religious person. It has been pretty good. It's felt good. We've talked about certain things. How do you feel? How do you feel about this? Paul does it all, and it's good. It makes everyone talk and say something. How you feeling? So, if you want to join our Bible class or Bible studies, then if you get Pat's email, oh yeah, it's up there already. Can you email Pat McGinnis there? patrick.mcginnis at nationalhousingparty.uk, and he'll get back to you. And we've had like 8 people at a time coming on. Obviously, if we get bigger, we'll have to move to a platform that can take more people, with probably something like Google Meets or something. But yeah, please, if you want to join in our Bible studies, it's on a Wednesday. And again, I'm not going to be dishonest, and I'm not going to lie. Right? I'm not a very religious person, and I say it in every Bible class. I say it in every Bible class, and I think twice already Paul's asked everyone to pray to get me to bring me on board. But it's coming from my point of view. But again, Big John's not the kind of person who just shuts you down if he's not don't agree with something. Now, whether you're religious or not, faith and the church in our community can be a powerful thing for bringing people together. In my own community where I'm running in Hollingwood, one of the churches is also a food bank, and so a lot of people in the area go to this church, and they don't always go to do church things, but they go to this church and they get food, and it's needed for them. So right, here's Paul.
Hi, John. Dozed off there, sorry.
Good evening.
What's
Right.
that?
Good evening, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, John.
The banner at the back, it was one of some banners came up on the side of the Manchester Evening News Arena, and it had to save one life is like saving all of mankind. And we did a bit of a video, and then the next day they took it down. But we found a couple across Manchester that have been defaced, and the one behind me says Islamoganda on it.
Islamoganda?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right, let's get that video up.
Right, let's see this. Is that okay like that? How are we, John? Are we well?
Yeah, good, thank you, sir. Good. Right.
It's all gone quiet, John.
Did you hear any of that then?
No, couldn't hear it, John.
Not at all.
I couldn't. No.
Right. Come on, John. Come on. Oh, the hoodie girl. The hoodie girl. Well, I do live at home and I look after my mum who has advanced Alzheimer's. So, although I don't work, I am saving Oldham Council, which is the biggest council in the United Kingdom for social care. I'm saving them thousands of pounds. So, if you want to carry on commenting, please do. If not, we'll get you blocked and kicked off the chat. Thank you very much. Right, sorry about that. I don't know why it's not coming through. It should do.
Is the sound on? Yeah.
Yeah. As far as I know. Don't worry. We'll get to it. We'll get to it now. We'll get to it. Don't worry about it. We'll get to it. I was just saying about the Bible studies then.
Yeah, Wednesday, tomorrow, 7 o'clock.
Yeah. Perhaps put a link in the chat. And I just said to people, even though I'm not a practicing Christian, I have enjoyed the 3 Bible studies we've done, and we all end up saying something and talking about stuff within the Bible and reading out passages as well, ladies and gentlemen. So if you want to join us one time, email Pat and I'm sure we can sort it out.
Yeah, the banter's been great at that Bible study and the teaching. And it's good just to focus on God, to take your eyes off the world and just turn to the Lord. And I feel really nourished by it, so far. And there's been great contributions. I mean, Dan's a very knowledgeable guy about the scriptures, and Paul as well. So yeah, it's great just to gather around the Lord's word. We're having real problems with this one, John.
I know. No, sorry. No.
What's the sound problem? Why no sound? Can you hear the sound? Can you hear it?
I can hear it because it's playing like on my computer, but it should go through everything else. And I've done the same kind of thing 100 times, so I'm not sure, but I will find it in a sec. Just bear with me.
This is a video that I made last week in Hall
in Liverpool, South Liverpool.
There's the sound now.
As you can see, it's a beautiful,
but no visual. Got the sound, but no visual.
Oh, did you hear the sound then?
Yeah, come through then.
Right.
Play again, John.
Right, 1 sec. It's coming.
Yeah, so this is a video made last week in Speak Hall in Liverpool, and it's only 2 minutes long, but it's had over 20,000 views across social media, which is quite incredible. That's the one.
South Liverpool. As you can see, it's a beautiful Tudor mansion, which dates back to the early 16th century. It was built during the reign of Henry VIII, and it's beautiful, still well preserved, and it just shows the depths of our history, even in this neck of the woods,
Again, the sound, but no visual, John.
To the surface, really, because the British people genetically have been here for over 15,000 years. Before the last ice age came to an end, we were occupying the south coast, and then as the ice receded, we sort of took over the whole of the British Isles, and we've added layers onto that Celts and of Saxons and of Normans, and of Romans here for a bit. But we're an ancient people, an ancient tribe, and this is our land. But sadly now, we're second-class citizens in our own land. And this is due to the Equality Act, which now stipulates that non-whites are given priority over whites in recruitment for public services. And you can see that in the higher echelons of the civil service. It seems to be saturated with Asians and Africans, and English faces, British faces are few and far between. And this is going on right through the state sector, the public sector, which is over 50% of our economy. There is a race war against the indigenous British people. And we're just sitting and taking it. I mean, no one's fighting for us. The Prime Minister, of course, he's from India, Indian heritage. The Home Secretary, she's from Mauritius in the Indian Ocean. The Foreign Secretary, of Caribbean origin. Dominic Raab is Czech Jewish origin. There's like a dearth of English people right at the top end of government. And we've got to correct this. We've got to make sure that the British people are not excluded from our own nation. And that's what the National Housing Party UK is all about. Prioritising the British, putting us first. This is our nation. We're going to have to fight for it, guys, because it's being taken off us. In front of our face and behind our back, we're being dispossessed. Wake up.
So we heard it, but we didn't see it.
Yeah, well, I can sort of repeat what was said there. We're talking about the Equality Act, or the Equalities Act, which is supposed to create opportunities for ethnic minorities in the public sectors and across Britain, you know, in all areas of life. But the effect they're having is that it's excluding white people. They're actually advertising jobs saying whites need not apply, or whites are being pushed to the back of the queue. They need to fulfill quotas now in the public sector, and they're preferring to recruit Asians and Africans and promote them once they're in the public sector working above the native population, the indigenous population. And we're seeing this in every sector of life now. I mean, we've seen it in housing with the National Housing Party, but we're seeing foreigners coming into the country. Maybe they've got children, maybe they've got desperate need of housing, but they're getting priority in the housing list. And the indigenous population are being pushed to the back of the housing list. There's over 1 million people waiting for public housing in Britain, social housing. This has waited a long time, and we're not getting it. And this is having a dramatic impact now because housing is so important. And there's very little social housing available now for British people. Being forced into the private sector where rents are higher, the quality of the accommodation is usually not as good. Those who get public sector housing are like privileged because, you know, you'll get your maintenance done, you'll get a fair rent, and you get, you know, a guarantee of inhabitation. And so you're really privileged, but it's really difficult to get social housing now. People who come here from overseas, they can bring their children and they can jump the list and they can go right into these available houses, you know, in the public sector. And it's scandalous because people need a house to start a family. They need a home to begin a family and a unit where they can grow, you know. And it's so expensive now. The cost of housing is astronomical. And not everyone can afford it. Most people can't. So we feel like we're being made second-class citizens in our own country.
Well,
go on, John.
Well, I mean, you just said about the people who are in power, right? But what you didn't say is that a lot of these people are only in power because of diversity, and then they're not in these positions because they're good at them, because they're not. They're not. David Lammy isn't good at his job. Diane Abbott's not good at her job. These people only got in for, and the reason I'm saying this is that the next couple of weeks I'm doing an expose on people in Oldham within the council and people in the community who've been put in positions of running schools and things like that and have failed because they haven't got the skills to run these schools properly. That's besides the fact that they're also it's a diversity push, isn't it? We've got to have so many in. So even though the Air Force in the Air Force didn't one of the top guys walk out because he said we're just not getting quality people now, and these people aren't as good as the other people we had, even no matter what colour they were, and it's ridiculous. And I'm doing a bit of a thing on this, and I mean, when we look at other countries, Paul, there's no other country like ours. There's no other countries that's so open, and I just think they just want to get rid of Britain, get rid of all its wealth, suck us dry, and then move on to another country. That's what they're going to do. The globalists, they don't like us. They don't like that we have an identity and that we can relate to things that we've done. We've been prominent in religion in the West, haven't we? In the years, you know what I mean, and the industrial age and stuff like that. We pushed all this. European power pushed all this, but we just don't like it, and it's shocking. It is shocking the changes in communities these days, and how nobody speaks English. And you expect if you got moved to Saudi Arabia, you speak Saudi Arabian, otherwise you don't get nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, what's going on? It's just beyond belief, isn't it? People are being over promoted. You've just said that. To be given priority. It's like, let's reverse discrimination. And it's like, as you say, people are being put in positions where they're not qualified to do the job. They're not doing good jobs. I mean, there's a Bangladeshi MP in London, a lady, who was basically only given that position as to stand as an MP because they wanted a woman and they wanted an ethnic minority. And so they chose her. They wanted a Bangladeshi woman in that seat. It wasn't a question of him having merit to do the job and being capable of it. She just ticked the boxes. And this is outrageous. But it's like contaminated every area of our society now. And we've gone along with it. We need to protest it. This Equality Act has sort of enforced this and made it into a law. And we seem to be disadvantaged all the time. And with certainly the scale of immigration now, I mean, 1 million people came into this country last year. With that scale of immigration, everything is being transformed. Every aspect of our life is changing. And I saw a speech today by President Macron of France. And he said that over the next 20 years, 200 million Africans are going to be heading for Europe. We're going to have to accommodate them. That's Western Europe. And this is going to totally transform our society. I mean, the government are giving the impression at the moment that they're going to stop these boats crossing the channel. Of course, they won't stop them. They intend to. They've already booked hotel rooms for another 20,000. They expect this to continue because they've signed up to every international agreement. We had the Marrakesh Convention on refugees. We've got the United Nations Convention on Refugees, 1951, which we're signed up to. We've signed up to every international agreement to open our borders to allow these people to invade us. And we have to start to withdraw from these conventions to put our borders, make our borders strong again. And they've got no intention of doing that. They've already decided to replace the native population of Britain with a foreign population, which is going to come largely from Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia. And people aren't aware of what's going on. They're in denial. They think the government is actually going to look after us and is going to control this. The government is, in reality, at war with the British people. They have declared war on us. not blatantly, but behind our backs, and they've decided to replace us. And the British people are in denial about this. We're in denial. Go on, John.
Sorry, I just want a big shout out to the chat. Tom English is in. Good evening, Tom. Hopefully, I will see you next week on the 18th, and I'll let you know details soon. But good evening there, sir. Good evening. Sorry, Paul. Go on, carry on.
So we've got to raise our voice. This is still a democracy. We can still vote. We can still join political parties. We still have a degree of free speech. We have to raise our voice and say, look, we like the way Britain has been in the past. We've enjoyed growing up here as children and raising our own children here. And we don't want to see Britain just washed away by a tidal wave, a tsunami of immigration, which we've had ever since 1997, when Tony Blair came to power and he opened the floodgates. Immigration went up from 50,000 a year to 500,000 a year, and it's now gone up to 1 million a year. We hope that we voted the Tories in to try and slow this down or reverse it. They've made it worse. And if Labour get back in power, they will continue with this. So there's no hope in conventional politics, in the Labour lab con. People have got to turn away from that. They've got to wake up and realise that the Labour Party has no interest in conserving the British people. They are quite willing to replace us. They've got no interest in preserving our traditional way of life. They're quite happy to just wash it away. People have got to be brave and vote for alternative parties. Now, we've got the National Housing Party of the UK. It's a vehicle for people to join and campaign and to stand in elections. We have to wake up, guys. We can't be lambs to the slaughter. We can't be sheeple any longer. We've seen the damage that the whole the pandemic has done to people's health. We can't just trust the people in authority anymore. We have to assert ourselves and we have to raise our voice. And when we get alternative vehicles like the National Housing Party of the UK, we have to get behind it. We have to donate to it. We have to join it. We have to make it active. And this is why I'm pleading to people to get involved, to make a difference. If we join together, just as people, we can make a huge difference. And I'm really encouraged by what's happening on Twitter, especially, where people are speaking out again. I mean, Pat's got his platform on Twitter, NHPUK, and he's got 20,000 followers. People are listening to what he's saying, and people are being allowed now. After a while, we've been censored for so long. People are being allowed to speak the truth again. I don't know what the situation is on Facebook and YouTube, but we've got to start to speak out. We've got to, first of all, acknowledge what's going on, that we are being replaced and dispossessed in our own land, that town after town, city after city is being saturated with immigration from the third world. This is costing us a fortune. They're invading the welfare state. They're taking our benefits and our housing and our healthcare. We're being pushed to the back of the queue, and it's not on, and it's going to get worse and worse. This is not like the immigration that was taking place in the 1950s when the West Indians came over, because they were limited in number, and they were basically Christians, and they understood our British culture. This is totally different. This is a different dimension, what's happening now. This is the destruction of Britain. What do you think about that, John?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, from 1950 till the year 2000, there was 10 million immigrants coming in total. So that's in that 50 years. And we've had 20 million in 20 years. So, yeah, what you said there, it was we only had specific numbers, and we only had specific numbers, a certain amount of numbers coming in. Although there was trouble, they were integrating. But now with 20 million people coming in just 20 years, there's no room to settle or anything like that. I mean, I'm against any kind of immigration, but the people would have seen the troubles. People knew the Troubles were coming in 2000, in the year 2000. That's why UKIP got started up just in the early thousands, because a lot of people seen what was coming. It was clearly on the sheet. It was clear that what would happen. People fought, and they said they'll start attacking our history, our culture, and all that's come true. So no, you're right. You're right. It's well documented, this, by the way, as well. It's not just a conspiracy theory. It's well documented that all these things were said, and this is what's coming. But you know what? In the Windrush days, Paul, nobody wanted any immigrants here. Nobody wanted anybody here. And I'll tell you that right now. No members of parliament, nobody in the government or anything wanted any kind of immigration to the United Kingdom. There wasn't any liberals who said, no, you can't say that. You can't say that. And then by the time Enoch Powell did his speech in the 60s or the late 60s.
Mate, that was in April 1968, Enoch Powell made that speech. And he said then,
yeah,
you're building up your own funeral pyre. And this is what I feel, John. When I go out in the street now. I mean, we're on YouTube now, and you go out, and our cities are being transformed. It's like, what's happened?
Yeah.
The foreigners are just saturating our cities. And Enoch Powell said when immigration was 50,000 a year, that you're building your own funeral pyre. He said, you must be mad. You must be literally mad. You're destroying your own nation. You're losing what is yours. You're forfeiting your inheritance. What are we going to pass on to our children, John? Yeah, I was looking the other day at the birth rates in the world. Right, you go to Jamaica. The Jamaican birth rate now is basically under 2. Jamaica's got a very stable population. We don't get Jamaicans coming to Britain now because they're not that exporting people anymore. But if you go to places like Somalia or Pakistan or even Nigeria, the birth rate's still through the roof. They're having big families.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry about that.
Well, so and they're looking, and they're exporting a huge amount of people, and they're going to start coming here. I mean, we were told in the 1960s that we had to reduce our birth rate. I was one of the baby boomers, and my parents were told to have 3 or less children. And they legalized abortion, the killing of unborn children. They promoted the contraceptive pill. They made divorce easy. They legalized various sexual practices, such as homosexuality. And they dramatically lowered the birth rate in Britain. And they said we had to control our population. But what they didn't tell us was that as we were controlling our population, they were going to bring in a huge third world population to replace us. And that's what's happened. As you said, 20 million have come in since the 1960s, and it's accelerating. It's not over. It's not like we can just stop now. If they stop some of the boats coming over the channel, we could all say, well, we've got put an end to that. No, it's getting faster and faster. More and more are coming over. Planes and boats and train loads of them. And we're going to end up like Calcutta. I mean, they're talking about having to begin a huge house building program in Britain because the population is exploding rapidly. We're heading towards 70 million. And no one's talking about this. It's like a conspiracy of silence. The politicians won't talk about the demographic transformation of Britain. The media won't talk about it. That's why I don't buy newspapers. That's why I don't even read magazines now, because they just talk about trivial things like Harry and Meghan. They won't talk about the fact we're losing our nation rapidly and we've got to stop it. And this is happening right across Europe. There's something called the Kalergi Plan. You ever heard of that, John? The Kalergi Plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was started in the 1920s by a guy called Kalergi, and he got the backing of the Rothschilds and various international bankers. And he had this plan of basically getting rid of borders and mixing all the world together. But what is the advantage to us of bringing in tens of millions of unskilled people from the third world to saturate our cities? What do we gain from that? They're going to destroy our welfare state. They're going to acquire political power, and they're going to push us to one side. But actually, as Enoch Powell was spot on, we are building our own funeral pyre, and we've got to speak out about it. There's got to be voices that have the courage to say, this has to be stopped. There are voices throughout Europe. People are rising up, and in Italy, they have a new government, Meloni's government, which are trying to stop this mass immigration. We had Marine Le Pen in France. We've got the AfD in Germany. We've got the Vox Party in Spain. In Sweden, the Swedish Democrats took power. It's not that people hate or despise foreigners. They just want to preserve their way of life and keep things under control. There's like a loss of control here. And the people who are responsible for our nation don't seem to want to take responsibility for our future. As I said just earlier, they're at war with us. It's an undeclared war to replace us. It's scary, John, and it's hard to actually acknowledge it because people just think, no, this can't be true. The government, it doesn't want to destroy us. It doesn't want to push us aside. Open your eyes. Just look at what's happening around you. And now it's starting to destroy the welfare state. We can't afford it anymore. The country is bankrupt. We're borrowed to the hilt. Trillions of pounds in debt. And the cost of debt is spiraling. And we're not going to be able to afford this. This is the problem. The shit is about to hit the fan. And people are being forced to pay higher taxes. They're being forced to pay higher prices for goods. Inflation is starting to roar again. And there's no hope, because if we replace the Conservatives with Labour, we'll just get worse. We know that. They've got no policies. They've got no intention of reversing what's going on. It's like a form of madness. And it's only the small parties like the National Housing Party of the UK, and it's only brave patriots like yourself and Pat and others who are actually speaking truth. And people recognise this on social media because our posts are getting a big response. I made that little video outside Speak Hall thinking it would get a few hundred views. It's got over 20,000 views and people saying this is spot on. We are being made second-class citizens in our own country. We're being pushed aside. We're just there to pay taxes. And when we want public services like health services, like public sector housing, like education, we're being pushed to the back of the queue. It's not on, John. It's not on. We've got to take action. What can we do to reverse this, John?
I just want to bring something in now. The statistics show that the Caribbean community in England is shrinking. It's shrinking because what they're pushing on everyone is this inclusivity, diversity. You can love anyone you want, yeah, and they're forcing people into mixed marriage. And I'm not saying it's a wrong thing to do, but then you end up losing a bit of your culture, because even though I'm Jamaican ethnicity, because I'm mixed race, I've lost a little bit of me. I know my history, but there's other people who don't, and they lose it. And then the next generation will lose. There's going to be nobody identifying as Caribbean. And
well, the Caribbean's just shrinking rapidly, John, in number, because we're not getting immigration from the Caribbean. As I say, in the Caribbean, birth rates have actually fallen quite sharply, and the population's very stable there. So they're not exporting people. It's like the Irish don't really export people anymore. The people are coming from Africa, from the Middle East, from South Asia, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, and India to a degree. And so it's like a third world invasion that's taking place now. It's not like the old days of the British Empire, where people we knew and who shared some of our culture were coming amongst us. I mean, I used to play cricket with some of the West Indian lads. They would go down the pub. They went to the churches. They integrated into the community. They were only small in number. What we're seeing now is an alien culture is colonizing our cities. It's taken over. If you go to West Bradford, you'd be lucky to see an Englishman. You'd be lucky to see a church. I mean, there's hundreds of mosques, there's curry houses, but, it doesn't feel like England anymore. and that's in city after city. You go to Leicester, it's the same.
Just
You go
let
to
me-
Coventry, go to Birmingham.
Just let me move in. Good evening, Durham Fox, McCarthy, John McCarthy in. Good evening, sir. Thank you for watching. McCarthy plan. What we'll do, I will get John on separately sometime, and we'll do a show with him, and he'll tell you about himself. But we'll sort that out coming on. Yes, sir. Fox inbound. Durham Fox has said, yeah, ugly truth. Good evening, everyone. Mark Williams. WK White Knight, thank you, Craig. To Craig, thank you both. Been very chatty in the chat, you two. I see a lot of things. Roman, Six King, and good evening. Good evening. Yes, thank you. Go on, carry on, Paul. Carry on.
Well, it's interesting you talked about McCarthy there. The Irish guy, yeah, he's got this plan for a real United Nations, which is about securing nations borders, securing their identity and their inheritance, their traditions, securing their democracy and freedoms. What we have with the control from the United Nations, the European Union, NATO, is that nations are being stripped of their power. The borders are being taken away. And we have this globalism. There's a new global elite that think they're all above the nations, and they don't listen to us. We're just like the cattle, to be shoved around. And it's about taking away nationhood. But without our nations, we're lost. There's no such thing as a one world order. There's no such thing as a one world nation, because you'd have no democracy then. The people in power would not be accountable to anybody. They would do whatever they wanted. Like this whole pandemic, scamdemic, plandemic, whatever it was. It was all dictated from the United Nations downwards. Big international companies, big international corporations, big international institutions like the World Health Organization, they dictated what took place. And anyone who stood against them, there were national leaders who said, look, I'm not going along with the lockdowns. I'm not going along with this facts. We don't trust it. There were national leaders who stood out against the scamdemic, and they were killed. 5 international leaders who stood out against the whole scamdemic or plandemic or pandemic, whatever you want to call it, the whole COVID nonsense, they were assassinated. This is true, including the leader of Haiti and various African countries. And the whole global sort of political class just went along, and it was controlled by the UN. And it's the same with migration. None of them will stand up against this mass immigration. They will just not stand up, and it's dictated by the United Nations. We've all signed up to treaties allowing the United Nations basically to control our borders, and this is why these people are just continually flooding in, and it's costing a fortune. They come here. Everyone that crosses that channel, everyone who claims asylum, costs at least £60,000 a year.
Let me just weigh in.
What you said, Joe?
I'm just weighing in. I just want to thank everyone who's just come from Chief Moody's stream, because I did hear him say that I'm streaming at 7 p.m. tonight. Thank you very much. I see Aunt Sally's in there. Good evening, Aunt Sally. John, does Paul have his own channel? You do have your own YouTube channel, don't you?
Yeah, we used to have a very popular YouTube channel, but Mike Lane, who was my cameraman, he's got cancer and he's had a serious operation, so that's been put on hold. I've got a Twitter account, but I'm part of the National Housing Party of the UK now, and that's become a platform.
Yeah,
that's a platform for patriots, not just for me, not just for John, not just for Pat, but for anyone who wants to acknowledge what's going on in this country, the scandal that has taken place, the abuse of the British people, which has taken place by the political elite. And we have to resist this. We have to rebel against it. We're a rebel party. We want to reassert our nationhood and our national identity, and we're not prepared to accept what is being foisted upon us. And we're speaking it out plain and simply. We're not preaching hatred. We're not preaching any sort of evil. We're just saying we want a future for the indigenous people of this country. Those who've joined us and have integrated in the past are welcome, but we want an end to permanent settlement. We want an end to mass immigration. We want to withdraw from all these international treaties, which have basically tied the government's hands and allow these people just to cross our border at will and then claim all sorts of privileges, not just benefits, not just all the freebies that they get, the healthcare, health, hotel rooms, free education, but they're getting political rights. They're being empowered, and that is taking away our rights. That's why we feel that we're oppressed in this country. And if we speak out, we're condemned, we're insulted. For speak out in defense of your country doesn't make you a Nazi, doesn't make you a racist, doesn't make you a fascist. It's just a patriot. In the past, that was a virtue. It was a virtue to love your country and to love the people of your country and want to protect your country. Now they're saying it's somehow evil to want to give your kids a future, because if we allow this uncontrolled mass immigration to continue, our kids will have no future. We'll be marginalized. These immigrants who are coming in such numbers, they're not coming in as individuals. They're forming colonies in our country. Every city, we see this. If you go to Birmingham or look at London, the transformation there. These are now become alien cities. We're being pushed to the margin. It's going to get worse and worse. There's nowhere to run. Some people say, like Peter Hitchens says, if I was a young Briton now, I'd go abroad. I wouldn't stay in this country. Where would you go, Peter? Because this is right along the west, right around the Western nations, from Australia to Canada, from Germany to Italy. There's nowhere to go. You've got to stand up where you are and stand your ground and get involved in the local issues, because these big things, what I'm talking about, they impact the local communities. They mean that local people cannot get public sector housing, and we need it these days because housing is so expensive. It means that when you go to the hospital, there's an endless queue. It's not that we have an NHS problem. We have an immigration problem. The NHS has been overwhelmed by demand, because we have these health tourists as well who just come here to get operations and stuff. It's free. The NHS is free at the point of use, and it's being abused by the whole world. It's the International Health Service. And we, the British who finance it, are finding we have to wait longer and longer, and we're being pushed further and further down the queue. And it's not on. And the Labour Party are not going to do anything about it. They pretend that it's just a financial issue, that if we spend more money, we could resolve this. No, it's a bottomless pit. It's like throwing water in the sand. Money won't solve this problem. We have to strengthen our borders and stop the abuse.
Well, I'm weighing in again. I'm weighing in again. So the NHS have got 6,000 diversity officers. Some of them are on £100,000 or more. 6,000 diversity officers, and it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous, because really that would mean then, if people are getting hired because of the colour of the skin, we're going to lose the quality of nurses and doctors we get. Now, don't get me wrong, I've never had a white doctor, but I wouldn't give up my current doctor for anyone else. He's African, but he's a good doctor. And we know that some Africans can be really good in them kind of areas. And the other doctor I had was Indian. And these two people know 3 generations of my family. You know what I mean? And I don't want to get rid of them. But we are going to start hiring people who aren't as good at the job or not the best person for the job, because that's one of the things that comes with diversity thing. No matter what you say, that section of it is in it. And you was going on about like people in Britain, and we're being pushed for climate change, yet a traditional British English family has like 3 is a big number for a normal family, 3 children. But the families we have in here, 5 and 6 is a big number for the families. And for every child you get, you push the CO2 levels up more. You worry. You're more worrying about climate crisis. And a woman at a climate crisis conference said, "I've less kids." So after the break time, I went up to her. We're filming. Listen, you're going to say that to Muslims? And she just looked at me funny. And I said, "Well, you're not going to say that to them, but you'll say it to white people." That's what I said to the woman. And her face dropped, Paul. Her face dropped. You know what I mean? And the hypocrisy of it all. And of course, with rubbish housing comes deaths. All you see now is children in flats. I don't want to see a family of 2 or 3 children living in a flat. They should be in a house or something like that. But yeah, carry on, Paul. I've just got to jump off because
I'll carry on talking. You know, for me, this climate change is just part of the scam. It's just another excuse to steal our taxes and undermine our country. Because we've signed up to all sorts of international agreements to cut our carbon footprint, supposedly. I don't personally believe that anything mankind does can affect the global climate. It's so big. I mean, I studied meteorology, I studied climate science, and I tell you, our climate is connected to all sorts of cycles like the carbon cycle and nitrogen cycle and water cycle, which regulates the climate. It doesn't matter what man does, things are returns back to normal. That's why the sea level has actually not risen for nearly 5 centuries. When the Pilgrim Fathers arrived in America, they put a stone at the sea level and said, "We have now arrived in America." That stone is still at the sea level 5 centuries on. We were told in the 1980s that by the year 2000, Britain was going to be a desert. By the year 2000, the ice caps were going to melt. By the year 2000, climate change would have destroyed our planet. We were going to get hotter and hotter, and things were going to be horrendous. All by the year 2000. Of course, the year 2000 came and went. Now we're in 2023, and it's just the same old cold winter. They keep saying the climate's increasing all the time. It's not. The climate goes in like 5 and 6 year cycles. It warms up slightly, and then it cools down. I mean, I'm a gardener, and I see this. You can go 3 or 4 years of very few frosts, and then you'll have some really cold winters, which kill off all your tropical plants. So for me, the whole climate change fiasco is just a scam. It's just another excuse to undermine us and to control us and to tax us. And we have to get back to the bread and butter issues, the real issues. And housing is the big one. Because we need families in this country, John. We need to go beyond 3 kids. I mean, Pope John Paul II, he said that no nation can survive mass abortion. Mass abortion takes away our future generations. It takes away our children. I mean, a lot of...
just going to weigh in again. Andy Edge is in the chat. Good evening, Andy. Bobby Crush and Arlene, I have said already. I don't know where she's gone now. She was in the chat. Joe Marsh, English Weather. Thank you, everyone who's come from Chief Moody's channel. Big respect. Thank you very much. But no, you're right, Paul. It is. It's all control, getting us under control and all that. It's ridiculous. And I mean, a lot more people are seeing it these days. But going back to the political party, don't let anyone fool you and say that things aren't changing, because they are changing. There's less people voting for the mainstream parties, no matter what you see on telly, no matter what you see on radio, no matter who tells you, there's less people voting for these parties now, less people. And they're voting differently and people are changing. So, but National Housing Party, it's 10-2, Paul, by the way. I'm just reminding you.
Yeah, I'll just carry on to... I was going to go to a meeting, John, but it's okay. It's been cancelled.
Right.
What I want to say about the cynicism now that people have towards the mainstream parties, the Liberal Ab Con, is fully justified. These people are a racket. They have taken control of the political system through the parties. They win their elections, they gain power, and they don't listen to the popular voice. They don't fulfill their promises, and they have no intention of doing so. In fact, they really resent the fact that we voted for Brexit as a people. The 17 million people who voted for Brexit, they're not really, rolling out Brexit. We've still got over 3,200 EU laws which control this country. We've still got EU regulations, massive EU regulations. We're still paying a fortune into the EU budget. We supposedly have left. But the Labour Party think that by stealth, they can win the next election by promising that they will get Brexit done, just like the Tories. But they've got no intention to do that. They're lying to us. These people are deceivers. That's why people are cynical about them. The Labour Party will say anything to get power. They'll even say they'll control immigration or whatever. I mean, Tony Blair said all that. Tony Blair said that he will control immigration, and he just opened the floodgates. They will do it in an underhand way. They'll tell people what they think people want to hear. But once they get power, by stealth, they will increase taxes. They will keep the mass immigration going. They will tie us back into the European Union and the single market, and they'll sell us out. They'll sign up to another UN deals, UN resolutions, which makes it easier for people to, bogus asylum seekers, to get into this country. They'll do nothing for the British people. The National Health Service will actually get a lot worse under Labour because they'll bring in more people to abuse it, and they won't put British people at the front of the queue. In fact, you see, when Labour won in 1997, they inherited a golden economy, so they were able to do a lot with the money that the Tories provided. If they win this time, they're inheriting an economic meltdown. They're inheriting inflation and runaway inflation and spending commitments. They're going to have to put taxes up. It's going to be horrendous because I've looked at Labour's policies. They've got no policies. It's just like their whole approach is to say nothing and do nothing and just criticise the government, but they won't say what they intend to do once they get power. If Labour get in power, the situation will get far worse. And the Tories, they're creating this situation for Labour to take power. I actually think that there are people within the Tory party that would be quite happy to see Labour gain control because they're EU fanatics, the traitors. So we need an alternative platform. Now, we've got the Reform Party, but they lack a radical edge and they exclude patriots from their ranks.
They're full of conservatives and Labour people, you know what I mean? And they still hold to their values and that.
They're not radical enough. We need someone who's a radical, like Donald Trump did in America, and say, look, we need to put the border back up. We need a border wall. We need to effectively control immigration again. We need to put British citizens first in this country. And those who come here and seek to abuse our welfare state will not receive benefits, will not receive free education, will not receive healthcare. Those who come here illegally will be returned to their countries. We will stop this mass immigration, permanent settlement immigration. We've had enough, John. We've had enough. 20 million since 1960s. It's enough. We have to stop it completely now and preserve what's left of Britain.
It's in total since 1950s we've had 40 million immigrants. 40 million immigrants.
Well, we've certainly, I mean, we've seen the transformation of our cities. People say it's too late, but we have to preserve what we still have today. I mean, a lot of people have still got a lot of comfort in this society and are still doing well. But if it gets worse, as it is doing, they'll be pushed out of their comfort zones. Their opportunity to prosper in the future will be taken away. We'll lose control of the situation. We, the people, have to reassert ourselves, and we have to form a new political party. That's what the National Housing Party of the UK is. It's a new voice for common sense. Remember those two words, John? Common sense. Because we all know what needs to be done.
I've still got them written down, and I won't easily forget them.
Yeah, so how do you see it unfolding yourself, John?
Well, everyone's phoning me. Someone's phoning me right now.
I'll carry on speaking then if you want.
I'm not answering it. No, you're right. It's madness. It's madness. You know, I mean, some of our policies coming up, right? I mean, I don't think that we should have a prime minister that's not at least 50% ethnically English.
Yeah, he's got no British blood in his bones, and he wanted to go and live in California. For him, it's just a job.
Yeah,
his heart's not in it, you know.
It winds me up, and a lot of them are in for that. A lot of them are in to get the tag, to get the. No one really in government cares about England or the British people. They don't.
What they do, John, is they push the can down the road. They think we've got all these problems, they need to be resolved, but we're not going to take the responsibility for them. We'll kick the can down the road and the next lot can sort them out. And this is what's happened with immigration ever since the 1940s. Nobody's effectively taken control. I mean, Margaret Thatcher brought in the Nationality Act, which limited immigration, but that's been abused now, and we're back to the free-for-all situation. Someone has to step in and start speaking truth again, start speaking sanity again. That's all we want. We want sanity back in this country. To me, to preserve the British way of life, to secure our borders, to give our children a future, this is just normality. It's sanity. The AfD have a slogan in Germany. It's back to normal. We want a normal society. We don't want a society which asks our children, are you in the right body? Or promotes like bizarre lifestyles. We want to promote the family. We want to promote our traditional Christian faith. We want to value our traditional culture and our traditional way of life and our traditional symbols, like the Union flag here, we can see. We want to value what we inherited because we love it. It's worthy of being valued. And we're sick and tired of people who want to radically transform this country for the worse. We want to radically transform it back to what it was. We want to go back to the 1967 or before Tony Blair, 1996. And that was a great society. We enjoyed that. We want to see a wholesome British society where people can live in peace and people can have a hope for the future. And that's all we're standing for. We have the policies to make that happen. So that's the National Housing Party job.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. Thank you. Honestly, wise words. They've liked the chat tonight. Quite a few people. I think we've got a few come over from Chief Moody's stream again. Thank you very much, Chief Moody. I heard the shout out. Anyone who's come over from his channel, thank you very much. Oh, Paul's gone. Tomorrow night, I've got the PCP girls on, Public Child Protection. A group of mothers in Wales who were taking the Welsh government to court over sex education in schools. And they've been running, or at least one or two of them have run in local elections. And them girls are on my show tonight. Tomorrow night, PCP, Public Child Protection Wales, from 7 p.m. So it'd be really good. Kim has been on GB News. She's had a few interviews to do with the news and that. So I'll be asking her about the case, if she can tell me. And they are in court tomorrow. Yes, Roch, good evening there, sir. Gammon Sandwich. Arlene, I'll see you. Who else? George Benson, good evening, everyone. So tomorrow night will be the Public Child Protection Wales girls. Should be interesting. Ask them about the court case, and they are in court tomorrow. I think it's their appeal. And they've ran in local elections. So that'll be tomorrow night. Thursday night from 7 p.m. Thursday night from 7 p.m. Tomorrow night is Bible class. If you want to join or get involved, email patrick.mcginnis at nationalhousingparty.uk. Email him there and he'll sort something out. But that's our Bible study class, and it's tomorrow evening. Is it from 8, Pat? I think it's from 7 or 8. I think it's from 8. Might be 8 o'clock. So thank you very much for joining. 7 p.m. There we are. 7 p.m. is Bible class. But get in contact with Pat, patrick.mcginnis at nationalhousingparty.uk, and we'll go from there. But thank you very much. I'll see you. Whoever's coming on tomorrow, I'll see you tomorrow night on the Bible study. But that's it for this evening. Don't forget, tune in Thursday, 7 p.m. PCP girls. And I'll see you next week. Don't worry, Chief. I just want to thank you for mentioning the stream and telling people to come over, because we've just had a bit of an increase in watchers and we're guessing them that they're from your channel. But thank you very much, Chief. A quick thing I'll say. I watched part of your stream and were the blaming, saying right wing, far right is more of a bigger threat than anything else. All I'm going to tell you is that there's been, since the past 20 years, 22 years up to now, we've had around 90 Islamic terror attacks. Now, if you want to say about far right attacks, I'll just say 2. One, which was Finsbury Mosque part. Joe Cox wasn't far right, and there's been no other far right deaths, but there's been 90. Around 1993, it might be, Islamic deaths since the year 2000. And all the press do is focus on far right, far right, far right. I know 2 people who have been on the terrorist watch list. One was having a flyer in his pocket, and the flyer wasn't even that bad. And the police had already seen the flyer. But when they got the guy, because he was vulnerable, they managed to get a charge on him, but no one else got any kind of charge for that flyer. But he did, because he was vulnerable and easy to pick on. You have to watch out for that. It's the typical thing of the police. And the other thing is, we went to Sevenoaks and we got attacked by 40 masked Antifa goons, and 4 people ended up doing jail and being on the terror watch list for being attacked. Now, if these Antifa goons hadn't come with masks on, there'd have been no trouble. We was on our way home. We was ready to go home. But no, they came with masks on, threatening everyone. They had weapons, reinforced gloves and koshes. Yet 3 of the lads who resisted were on the terrorist watch list. So as far as I'm concerned, Prevent is a load of bullshit. It is. No one's proved to me that like they're doing it honestly. When they're not doing it honestly. Whatever they can do to get them figures up, they'll get them figures up. But just remember that 90 deaths in 20 years, and we'll just say there's only been 1 death from anybody who's supposed to be far right, but he was mentally ill anyway, who crashed into Finsbury Park Mosque. But they'll never tell you that. He was the sanest person going. But thank you very much, and I'll catch you all next week, 7 p.m. Thursday, 7 p.m. Public Child Protection. Thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you.